Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to take a look at the Scalecaller Peak Dungeon. I will explain all boss mechanics, including a hard mode. I also do have a written guide on my website. I will put the link into the description. So let's get started. First boss encounter, you will meet two ogres. Now here you have to make sure that you don't stack them on top of each other, because they will get really strong. The ranged ogre in the middle will always stay there, so your tank just has to make sure to keep the melee ogre somewhere around the edge of the arena. After engaging the boss fight, the boss in the middle will start casting a huge snowstorm, and like those spikes on the ground will appear. They should have a yellow circle. Now, what should you do with those? Basically, if you run into those spikes, you will get stunned and kind of get frozen, like you freeze. And you need to break free. Very important, the melee boss will cast quite a weird AoE attack on the ground. You will get a notification on your screen, and that's when you have to walk into those spikes. If you get hit by this AoE from the melee boss, you will immediately die. But if you're in the spikes stunned, you will not get any damage.
Too late.
As you can see, every time the melee boss does a light attack, he shoots a poison dot over the field in a straight line, and that will apply a huge dot on you. You actually can purge that, either shield it or purge it, but it does a lot of damage. After a while, the boss in the middle will also start casting those huge ice spikes that will come up from the ground. Now you have to make sure to hide behind those. If you don't hide behind those, the boss will kinda unleash a huge bang and basically kill everybody that isn't behind those spikes. From time to time, also make sure to interrupt the boss in the middle, because stomp his hands on the ground and spawn skeevers all the time. Please make sure to not forget to subscribe. Dilemage Ironheart is the second boss in Scalecaller Peak. Keep the boss just where he spawns. There is a lot of ads that spawn, but they will mostly die from AoE damage, as they don't really have a lot of health. More important, however, he will spawn laser balls that will try to go to players and start beaming them, those red beams. And if you stand too close to them for a long duration, you will get stoned. And then another player has to break you free. You cannot break free yourself. So your number one priority is to kill those laser balls. They don't have a lot of health, so they will die fairly quickly. It's just you really need to get used to avoid like getting too close to them. The boss hits really hard, so the healer needs to constantly take a look at the tank's health. The boss also applies a bleed, which deals a ton of damage, so you need to constantly keep healing the tank. There will also be laser beams on the ground, just make sure to avoid them. If you stay too long in them, you will also get stoned. Matriarch Aldis is the third boss of Scalecaller Peak. Here there is a few very important mechanics. First off, every 10% a corrupted Lamanid will spawn, so make sure to go kill it. If you just damage the boss very fast, like you drop him to 50, you will have a lot of those Lamanids spawned, and they will deal a lot of damage. The boss also has two different AoEs. There will be a snowstorm. You really need to make sure to go out of that. It's a lot of damage. And he also stomps on the ground. You can block that or just also simply walk out of it. She also smashes her weapon into the ground, and you will get like conal AoE damage, so make sure that the damage dealers and the healers don't stand in front of the damage. If you don't have a shield up, you will almost immediately die because it's so much damage. The most important mechanic, however, is the boss will spawn an ice hole on the ground somewhere, and the tank has to make sure to go stand on it. If he doesn't stand on it, ice spikes will come out and hit the group, and most likely everyone will die because they deal so much damage. So the tank really has to make sure not to oversee that ice hole once it's spawned. If you want, you also can just nuke the boss down. He doesn't have a lot of health, so if you have all ultimates ready and that kind of stuff, it's definitely possible, but you need quite a lot of DPS, and the tank has to make sure, do not forget, to go to the ice hole and like stand on it, so the group doesn't get the ice spikes. If you're nuking, also make sure to stand close together, because it will be hard for the healer to heal all the incoming damage otherwise. Concator Mortio is the 4th boss of Scalecaller Peak. Now this one is not that difficult, but the fight is quite long because the boss has 10 million health. The most important mechanic is for the tank. You see those green like holes, grid holes in the ground, and from time to time poison water will splash out and hit the players. And similar to the ice hole mechanic in the previous boss, the tank has to go stand on it, so the damage doesn't go to the group members. It also deals a lot of damage. Mortio also has a conal poison spray ability. It's quite small and it takes a long time to get charged, so it's really easy avoidable. Then you will also get poisoned after a while, and you will actually stay in a poison status for quite a big chunk of the fight. Like your screen will turn greenish or reddish, something like that. And what you have to do, mobs will spawn, and our friendly NPC Jorvuld will gather like those dead mobs. He sometimes needs scamps, sometimes the beetles, and sometimes the stranglers. Once he has enough of those, he will craft a potion and throw the potion in the middle of the room, so you can go cleanse yourself on that spot. I recommend staying close together so it's easier for the healer to heal the group. And there is also a fire AoE he throws on the ground, but it's pretty easy avoidable, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Other than that, like, there is nothing special. It's just the boss has a lot of health, so the fight might take a while. Don't you just have to take the antidote? Should be fine. Zaan, the final boss of Scalecaller Peak. I will first quickly explain the non-hard mode, which is fairly easy, and then I will explain the hard mode fight in detail, because that's where the real challenge is at. Tank should keep the boss somewhere close to the statues, and at 80% 2 big ice ads will spawn. You really need to make sure to kill them fast, because they're kind of freezing the whole area. If you're too slow, the whole group will die. Once after those ice mobs are dead, the boss will get stunned and drop his shield on the ground. What you have to do is the full group needs to go to the shield and stay in that safe area, because the boss preys on the statues and the whole area will be covered in poison. If you are not in the shielded area, you will die. If you are in the shield area, you will survive. Zaan will then pick up his shield again and afterwards do the fire cage mechanic, growing field under him till it explodes, and then a huge beam connects to one of the players. It can go on anyone, and that beam needs to be interrupted. So you need to go between the boss and the caged player to interrupt the beam. If that is not being done, the dude that is caged will die. If it's a damage dealer, you can max take like 1-2 hits. The tank will survive longer. The only other mechanic present after 80%, there will be random conal poison attacks from the statues. So there is 3 zones. You have a left, middle and the right zone, and it can spawn anytime. So I really recommend standing close to the statues or somewhere where you can easily move to the left or right to avoid this huge poison AoE. As you see, the poison AoE just killed me because I completely forgot the mechanic actually existed. There is no other new mechanics in the execute phase. Let's go to the hard mode. Zaan hard mode. Now here it gets interesting. Make sure to be prepared. You will die a ton because this hard mode is so difficult. Zaan doesn't give a flying fuck. He will cut you open, no problem. Now I highly recommend, again, I really recommend that one player, if possible a Templar, a Magica Templar, DD or the healer runs Cockernach. This is a set that increases the rest speed. Most of the times you don't have enough time to actually rest people because there's so many mechanics happening. With Cockernach you kinda can circumvent that because you rest like twice as fast. As you can see, the mechanics are similar. Now instead of 2 ice ads, you will get 3, so you need to kill all of them. Now you don't have the luxury anymore just to hide behind the shield. There is like 4 different mechanics how you actually survive this poison cone that goes over the whole area. That's more or less the only difference between non-hard mode and hard mode. Basically, you have those 2 new odds in hard mode. And obviously the boss also has more health, but that's more or less it. But this makes the fight so much more difficult. Now I will explain why. The Frost Matriarch deals moderate damage, not that much, but that's not the main issue. He places small ice AoEs on the ground and snares the group. And that's the biggest issue, especially when you know like there will be poison cones, fire to avoid and all that kind of stuff. And when you're snared, you will most likely not make it out alive. So that's the biggest issue with this one. Then as you can see, there is also a corrupted Laminate now. This one does light attacks which deal decent damage, and it also has kind of disease AoE damage around her, which does a lot of damage, so you need to make sure not to stand too close to her. Keep in mind, the Laminate is weak to fire, so if like a burning effect procs on her, she will get stunned. And those 2 mobs, now once you kill the Frost Matriarch, he will drop the ice spikes. When somebody walks into the ice spikes, they will get frozen, like on the first boss. Same thing with the Laminate. If she actually dies, there will be a geyser. But again, if she's stunned and she dies, she will not pop the geyser, so you really have to make sure to not kill her while she's stunned. I recommend placing the boss close to the statues, like close to the corrupted Laminate. I also recommend focusing the mini ads. If they are dead, it will be way easier to avoid stuff and you will just get less damage in general. Now keep in mind, once those ads are dead, like I said, you will have those AoEs on the ground, so you need to make sure to not walk into those. We need those AoE fields later. At 80, 60, 40, 20%, he will do the mechanic with the ice ads and then the poison area. Now the interesting part, how do you actually survive this poison spray attack that covers the whole area? On the left side you can see the tank. There is a laser beam somewhere in the corner of the area, and that will all constantly shoot laser beams on the ground. When you walk into it, you will get stoned, similar to the second boss mechanic. I walked into the geyser to get lifted up into the air, and then there is 2 other people kind of behind-ish me. One dude got frozen from the ice spikes that were roaming around from the Frost Matriarch, and then at the same position San dropped his shield there. One dude can activate the shield synergy and survive with that. So there's 4 different mechanics on how you actually can survive the full poison AoE attack. Remember, the geyser and the ice spikes, if somebody already walked into those prior to this phase, you will not have those 2 mechanics anymore, and 2 people are guaranteed to die. Now, we run Kagranark, so you're resing really fast. That means you actually, when the people are dead, you can rest them quite fast again and recover without any problems. It's also very important to note that the laser beam on the ground, when somebody actually gets stoned prior this poison AoE phase, it's not that bad because the laser beam will always appear again. As you can see, it's very difficult. There's so much AoE fields on the ground, and you also have to avoid the poison sprays that cover 1/3 of the area. And those are random, like sometimes you will get one left, then one right again, then maybe a second one right, and all that stuff. So it's very important to always stand somewhere in between 2 of those. If you stand in the middle of an area, you will almost guaranteed die because you will not have time to actually run out of there. That's why I always prefer standing close to the statues, so the way to actually run away from the poison AoE is shorter. Another thing, after somebody got the fire cage, it is also possible that a poison cone will show up and you barely have time to run out. So if you're getting into a fire cage, try to be as close to the statues as possible, because it will take time to go back on the ground till you actually can move around again, and the poison cone almost immediately shows up if you have bad luck and it's actually in the area where you're caged. At 20% you will get one last phase, and then afterwards just nuke the boss down as fast as possible, ignore the ads and just nuke. That's it from me. I really hope this guide was helpful. If so, please leave a like, it will help me a lot, and don't forget to subscribe. I will upload more Elder Scrolls Online content in the future. If there are any questions, ask me in the comment section below. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Cheers.